There's a specific skill that Todd Howard has that I've never seen in another humanoid creature. He can look directly at a problem his own company created, acknowledge the problem exists, and somehow make it sound like everything is basically fine. I'm not even sure it's malicious. He genuinely seems to believe it. Case in point, when asked recently why Bethesda takes so long between releases, his answer was, "We feel we're going very fast." That's it. That's the whole answer. The man whose studio hasn't released a mainline Fallout game in 11 years, Fallout 76 doesn't count, Todd. This man genuinely believes they're moving quickly, and I'm scared because I think he really means it. Mortismal Gaming sat down with Todd at Bethesda's headquarters in Rockville, Maryland recently, and the interview covers a lot of ground. Starfield's future, Elder Scrolls 6, Fallout 4's ongoing mod situation. There are truly interesting things in here, but there are also moments where Todd says something that sounds completely reasonable on paper, and somehow makes you angrier if you think about it for more than 30 seconds. Okay, let's get into it. The Fallout 4 situation. If you've been following this channel for a while, you know I've covered Bethesda's handling of the Fallout 4 Anniversary Edition update at length. Mandatory update breaks the game, PlayStation players lose DLC access for months, mods get broken across the board. It was a mess, and it took Bethesda an embarrassingly long time to fix even the most basic parts of it. So when Mortismal asked Todd about broken updates and the challenges of updating games without destroying mods, I was paying very close attention. Todd acknowledged there were issues. He said they're still working to smooth that out. He said it's a priority whenever they see problems happening. He mentioned script extenders specifically, saying they try to give modders an early look before updates drop. All the right things to say. And then he said this, "I think we're in an okay place, but again, a lot of room to grow." Okay place? Let me walk you through what OK Place actually looks like from the outside. The Anniversary Edition update dropped and immediately broke PlayStation players' DLC access. Not for a week, not for a month, for the better part of 3 months. People who had paid for content couldn't access it. No opt-out, no refund, no timeline given for a fix. It just stayed broken while Bethesda worked on it quietly in the background. Then there's the mod storage expansion. This was the single most requested community feature for console players. More space to actually install mods. Bethesda announced it was coming. Then it didn't come. Then it got delayed. Then it got delayed again. As of right now, it still doesn't have a confirmed release date, and we're several months past when it was originally expected. And here's the detail that really sticks with me. It wasn't even mentioned in any of the Anniversary Edition trailers. Players found out about it after the update had already gone live and broken everything else. The biggest community-requested feature revealed as an afterthought, and in the meantime, because of how the Anniversary update changed the installation process, mods now require approximately double their download size in working space just to install. So if you're a console player with 2 gigabytes of mod storage, which many are, any mod over 500 megabytes is essentially unusable. Bethesda's update didn't just fail to improve the mod situation, it actively made it worse, while the promised improvements sat in a queue getting delayed. That's the OK place Todd Howard is describing. To be genuinely fair, and I want to be fair here, Bethesda has been releasing free creations for Fallout 4 in the meantime. New Vegas-themed weapons, content tied to the TV show, all dropped at no cost. And Fever Dreams, an upcoming creation made by King Gath Creations with the original voice actors for Nate and Nora, brought back specifically for it, looks genuinely exciting. Bethesda funded that. They got the original actors back. That's real effort and real money going into a decade-old game, and it deserves acknowledgement. But goodwill gestures don't fix mod storage, and "we're thinking about it" isn't the same as "it's done." Todd Howard can say they're in an okay place. The players still waiting for basic functionality to be restored would probably describe it differently. "We feel we're going very fast." This is the line that's going to live rent-free in my head for a while. Mortismal asked a reasonable question. Given how long it's been between major releases, has Bethesda considered making smaller games? Faster turnaround, less risk, keep the audience engaged between the big tentpoles? Todd's response, "We feel we're going very fast." I want to be charitable here because Todd's point is technically valid from a certain angle. Bethesda is counting Fallout 76 updates. They're on their 67th as part of their output. They're supporting Starfield. They're developing Elder Scrolls 6. From an internal resource perspective, the studio seems busy. Nobody is sitting around doing nothing. But that's not what the question was about. And it's not what your average Fallout fan cares about. Let me give you the actual numbers. Fallout 4 came out in November 2015. That's 11 years ago. Fallout 76 launched in 2018, and whatever you think of it, and I think very little of the launch version, it was not a mainline Fallout game. It had no NPCs, no real story, and launched in a state that would have ended most franchises. The fact that Bethesda recovered from it says more about brand loyalty than it does about game quality. So if we're being honest, the last real Fallout game came out more than a decade ago. Fallout 5 has no announced release date, no trailer, no confirmed title, and based on everything we know, won't arrive until after Elder Scrolls 6, which itself has no release date. If you were a Fallout fan in 2015, you have spent an entire decade waiting. And Todd Howard's answer to "Are you going faster?" is, "We feel we're going very fast." He also said something that I think is pretty revealing about how Bethesda thinks about this. "I also feel sometimes there are franchises too where you want them to breathe a little bit." And look, I do understand what he means. Overexposure can hurt a franchise. Releasing something every year means never having enough time to make something truly special. The logic holds in the abstract. But Fallout has been breathing for 11 years. At some point, it's not breathing, it's in a coma, and telling your audience to be patient while simultaneously describing your pace as very fast is the kind of disconnect that turns loyal fans into frustrated ones. To his credit, Todd didn't promise faster releases. He's being honest that Bethesda's release cadence isn't changing, and that speed for its own sake isn't the goal. That's a defensible position. I'd rather have a great game in 5 years than a mediocre one in 3. But the way he delivered it, "We feel we're going very fast," suggests an incredible lack of awareness of how that lands for an audience that's been waiting since Obama's second term. Yes, really. Difficulty systems and what they mean for Fallout. This is a smaller point, but one I found genuinely interesting, and it's worth flagging for anyone paying attention to what Bethesda's future games might look like. Mortismal and Todd spent some time discussing the modular difficulty system that was added to Starfield in a May 2024 update. Rather than a typical easy, normal, hard slider, it lets you dial in individual aspects of the game: combat difficulty, survival elements, resource scarcity, independently of each other. Want brutal survival but easier combat? You can do that. Want maximum difficulty on everything? That's there too. Todd clearly loves this system. He talked about how it emerged from an internal debate about what a survival mode should actually look like, where nobody could agree on a single definition. Rather than picking one answer, they built a system that lets players pick their own. He described it as something he wants to continue using going forward, and said as much explicitly in the interview. For Fallout fans, this matters because it's a direct response to one of the longest-running criticisms of Bethesda games, that they're too easy on normal difficulty and too punishing on hard, with nothing in between that feels right. New Vegas had hardcore mode, which was a step in this direction. A fully modular system applied to Fallout would go significantly further. Now, this is speculation. Todd didn't confirm anything about Fallout 5's systems. But when a studio head says, "This is a system we love and you're going to see us continue to use it," and then doesn't contradict that when asked about future games, it's reasonable to take that as a signal. If Fallout 5 launches with a difficulty system that lets you tune individual survival mechanics rather than just sliding a bar from easy to hard, that would represent a meaningful improvement over everything Bethesda has shipped before. Whether the writing, the factions, and the RPG systems improve alongside it is a different and more important question, but as green shoots go, this is at least something. Starfield's future. Mortismal asked whether Starfield was finished, whether the new Free Lanes update and the Terran Armada DLC represented the end of the road for the game. Todd said no definitively. He talked about Year 3 of Starfield content, but notably added that Year 3 may come in different formats. which is a carefully worded sentence worth unpacking. The Terran Armada DLC is $10. Shattered Space, the previous expansion, was $30. That's a significant price drop, and the content scale appears to reflect that. It's smaller, and it's worth remembering that Trackers Alliance originally launched at $7 for a single mission and a handful of items, got significant backlash, and was later expanded to include 6 missions for the same price. That's good. That's Bethesda listening and responding. But the fact that it launched the way it did in the first place suggests a calibration problem. Combined with Todd's different formats comment, what emerges is a picture of Bethesda increasingly leaning on their verified creator program, paid mods from third-party creators that Bethesda sometimes funds, as a way to keep games technically supported without committing internal development resources to traditional expansions. Whether that's a satisfying model for Starfield fans who wanted meaningful story content is a different question, but it does suggest the era of large, story-driven Starfield expansions may already be behind us. Elder Scrolls 6 and Creation Engine 3. This is genuinely the most interesting part of the interview, and I want to be clear, this is actually good news. Back in 2016, Todd Howard said Elder Scrolls 6 was dependent on technology that wasn't ready yet. For years, nobody knew exactly what that meant. New hardware, a new engine, some mysterious, unspecified breakthrough. In this interview, Todd finally clarified it. The tech he was referring to was Creation Engine 3, the engine Elder Scrolls 6 is being built on. Starfield was built on Creation Engine 2, which was itself a significant leap. CE3 is the next step, and according to Todd, the upgrade has gone considerably smoother than the CE2 transition did during Starfield's chaotic development period. That matters because Starfield's development was rough internally. New IP, Microsoft acquisition, pandemic, engine transition, all happening at once. Todd described how builds were frequently broken and unplayable during that period. With CE3 and Elder Scrolls 6, he says builds are consistently working every day. That's the kind of detail that sounds boring but is actually meaningful. A stable development environment produces better games. What CE3 actually enables, Todd wouldn't fully explain. Apparently, the specifics would spoil something about the game. But he hinted at improvements to data systems, how worlds load, and how high detail content is presented, which has led to reasonable speculation about seamless world traversal, ship travel between locations, and the kind of dense, interconnected world that Starfield gestured toward but couldn't quite deliver. I'm not going to speculate too much, but the honest takeaway is this. The engine is ready, the development sounds stable, and Todd seems genuinely excited. For a project that's been in some form of development for close to a decade, that's actually something worth acknowledging. The Shadow Drop comment. Todd mentioned, almost in passing, that his personal preference would be to not talk about upcoming games at all, that his ideal scenario is a game just appears one day without any prior announcement. He immediately acknowledged that probably won't happen at Elder Scrolls 6 scale. But the sentiment tells you something about how he thinks about the gap between anticipation and disappointment. The longer you talk about something, the more space there is for expectations to become unmanageable, which is exactly the situation Elder Scrolls 6 is in. Announced in 2018, no release date, every year without news is another year of expectation compounding. Todd knows this. He said, I almost don't like talking about it because anything that's said feels like it's adding to it. So where does all of this leave us? Elder Scrolls 6 is in active development on a new engine that's apparently working well. Fallout 4 is still waiting on a mod storage fix that's been delayed for months. Starfield is pivoting toward a paid mod model for future content. And Fallout 5 isn't mentioned, isn't hinted at, isn't even in the conversation. On the surface, Todd Howard seems passionate about what he's building. He doesn't give off the impression of someone who's just phoning it in. The Fever Dreams creation, the free content drops, the work on difficulty systems, let's be fair, these are actual efforts from a studio that, on some level, wants to make improvements. But there's a consistent gap between how Bethesda talks about its relationship with fans and how fans actually experience being a Bethesda customer. We're in an okay place, and we feel we're going very fast. Are sentences that make complete sense from inside Rockville, Maryland. They just don't land the same way from the outside. And until that gap closes, these interviews are going to keep feeling like someone explaining why your house isn't on fire while you're standing in the smoke.